Hi, and welcome to another AOGP Outside of the Church podcast. This is Jonathan Burke with my co host, Quentin Stroud. This one is entitled The Dwindling Spiral of Our Society. This should be a very unique podcast and sort of a reflective kind of podcast, a little bit different, changing it up here a bit before we get into the Scientology next week. I'm excited to
Mm,
do this one. This is going to be fun this last half of October with Halloween coming up. But I digress. So let's get the ball rolling here and talk about the dwindling spiral of the society that we live in. You wanna
yes.
take the lead on this one?
Boy, it's interesting because as we even look around the current state of affairs of our nations and peoples, and I was just talking to a gentleman yesterday in Washington, D.C., and he was telling me that I think like 68 carjackings has happened in the last month, in the month of September.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're in October. 68 carjackings happened last month just in the District of Columbia
Just in
alone.
DC.
Yeah, and it's just a lot of stuff that's going on. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
from prices to uh, one of my celebrity clients got uh, carjacked. A car got broken into in right in front of her home, right in front of the
Mm-hmm.
home.
Mm-hmm.
She was literally looking out the window, watching it happen. It was crazy. So all of this is happening. People are really getting hit hard with a lot of insanity and criminality. And I just think that there's a big decline
Mm-hmm.
that's happening in our society right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I really want us to, as independent Scientologists, I really want us to kind of go in and take a look at what is the cause of this? Where is this coming from? How do we make it through first and foremost? And of course, how do we reverse the decline? So I
Mm-hmm.
think that's going to be a really good, good flow to talk about.
Well, here's a question. If you were to identify, sort of like we do with word clearing in independent Scientology, or conditions or ethics conditions and so on, where were things last doing good in your estimation?
Mm,
Where were things last doing good? No limiter, just in our
yeah,
society.
yeah. Well, obviously, being young, and I can recall a time when things were going pretty well. I'm gonna say back in the 90s. I'm gonna say maybe mid to late 90s, things were going pretty good. Maybe the tech boom. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
It's all relative because it's also, obviously economics plays a part in it, but also uh what's happening in crime, with crime and stuff like that. I think the 90s we saw a deep late 90s we saw a decline in crime. We saw an increase in economics, but that's just in America. When we talk about society as far as,
Mm-hmm. At
the
large.
world,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like there's always shit going on,
Hard,
but
hard, hard to
I
say
would say the
because
late
you weren't in
90s.
all those
Yeah,
places at the same time.
correct,
Yeah,
correct.
yeah.
What are your thoughts?
I would tend to agree, and that always makes me default back to LRH's Philadelphia Doctorate Course lecture. I think it's the 23rd lecture where he talks about the shades of night. We have a brief moment here before the technology usurps our freedom. And
Mm.
at that time, what were the what was the first thing that occurred about 90, 93, 94, 95? The internet, America
AOL? I was
Online,
gonna say
yeah, AOL.
AOL. I was gonna
That's
say
where it all
AOL came
started.
out,
Yeah,
boy.
yeah. There
I
were
got my
BBSs in
CD
the
in the
80s.
mail.
Yeah, yeah. Right. You play frisbee with them. You got so many of them. Yeah, and that's where I think I always wondered, why would they allow such a educational freedom ensuring kind of thing. And then as time went on, I reversed my opinion and said, okay, Yeah, that's not what it was. it was it was the opposite. It isn't that they allowed, this was something that they were aware of, whoever they is, the
Sure.
powers that be, or maybe something else. We'll save that for
Mm.
parascientology. Um,
Hmm.
but that was sort of like where things really changed and sped up. And then you go 94, 95 in that area, then you jump to about 2006, 2007, smartphones. And that's where things really sped up in this dwindling spiral, because you don't need to chip everybody because they've got a phone.
They do it themselves. They keep themselves tethered.
Right. Right. Which is how these guys work, is, they have to get you to voluntarily be, under their watchful eye. So, the cause of the decline could be said to be twofold: the reactive mind and technology, both. And the
Hmm.
reactive mind is, as we've talked about in other podcasts, engrams, secondaries, locks, all of that. Those are motivators in the chain of misunderstood word, overt, being caused because of a confusion in an area, and then the resultant miss
Yeah.
withhold, and then the resultant motivator, which an engram is a motivator. So
Right.
it motivates you to do something else. Well, he slapped me, so I'm going to slap him, kind of thing. Well, there you go. There's your dwindling spiral, is the miss withhold, overt, misunderstood, that type of thing. And
All
so
that. Yeah.
all that. And so, you know as well as I do, from auditing, from processing, that when how do you stop that cycle of action? Well, you get those off, you get some as isness in auditing, and then all of a sudden you can reach again. What
Hmm.
causes a decline is the lack of the ability to reach. People withhold from their dynamics. They withhold from their second, their third, their fourth, their fifth, their sixth, their seventh, and worst of all, their eighth, which is the summation of all of those. So this is where
Hmm.
that decline starts to happen. And this is the same thing that has happened in every single dying or now non-present civilization that we've had on Earth, outside, and one could even argue, outside of cataclysmic consequences. A comet hits, part of a comet hits the planet, that type of thing. And that's supposedly per Graham Hancock and, well, what's the other guys? Randall Carlson. They both said this has happened within 11 times within the last 120,000 years on this planet. So you could almost
Hmm.
say, okay, so is that a motivator? Hmm, maybe.
Hmm.
On the third dynamic, LRH says the surface of planets is a very fragile thing, and they don't last long. And then you get a system reset just from the cosmic standpoint. Something hits the surface, boom, the atmosphere is shot. Okay, restart.
Right.
So you never really get past that sort of thing. Now that's the big, well, the only thing you could be guilty of is being there and communicating per LRH. But short of that, overts, withholds, motivators, more often than not in past civilization, it's the second dynamic folding up per LRH. And I've seen this in my own auditing, where things really, really go down the chute. When you make it so that, well, like look at China, for example. How many kids can you have in China? One.
One child now. Yeah.
Yeah, because the population is so large, because they're having a hard time keeping up with that, which also affects the environment, which is your fifth, sixth, seventh dynamic almost. And so these things start to chase one another. And this comes down to, I hate to say it, but the E word, ethics. Our listeners, all of a sudden, all of our listeners went, oh God, here we go again.
Here we go again with
Not
that.
this. There we go again with that. But it's true. It is true.
It's true.
You have to look at this stuff, and you have to figure this stuff out. So part of this that have to do with ethics, it isn't what you think it is when it comes to ethics. This comes back to our first point: engrams, secondaries, locks, overs, withholds, misunderstoods, motivators, all of that stuff. Because what's going on here is
Yeah.
we have the technology. We have the technology to have a lot more people on this planet than one might think. But the thing
Mm-hmm.
is the people that are holding the technology back are holding it, the 1% are holding this back. We have the capability, we have the technology for free energy.
Yes, that's true.
Okay. There's ads on YouTube. I saved a link for it where they have one that they're advertising. I can't believe that YouTube is allowing it, but they have one and it's being advertised. And if you have free energy, that goes a long way ethically on the third and the fourth dynamic to help people, but it doesn't just stop there. It's not just, okay, we have energy. Now I can just go and fuck off all I want. That's
No.
probably what would happen,
Right.
because there's no such thing as a free lunch. It isn't just having energy. It isn't just having the technology. It's what
Or
you
just
do
having money.
or having money.
Right.
It doesn't have
Mm-hmm.
anything to do with those things. Yeah, it's KRC. We're coming back to that. Knowledge,
Mm-hmm.
responsibility, and control. If you have the energy to do something, if you have the ability to not use combustion engines and just continue to take advantage of the situation, and everybody is driving around in cars that are using fossil fuels, polluting the atmosphere or whatnot, so on and so forth, then why wouldn't you want to do that? Well, that's KRC. There's no KRC being taken here because there's no way, there's no money. It's just like the medical stuff. There's no money in the
Right.
cure. There's
Right.
only money in getting people to come back. So you keep them sick. And this gets to our next point: suppression.
Mm-hmm.
Because we have the
Yeah.
means. We have the means. We have anti-gravity devices. Now, any other society that comes to this planet, right? And see, and they're coming in, they come into the atmosphere or they just appear in the atmosphere, which is what a lot of them do. They just appear in the atmosphere. They have these jump points where they just boop, boop, and they're there. And they're looking at the ground and they're like, hey, Joe, check this out. They're still moving on the ground. Who does that? Who does that? And they look at us and they go,
They're bipedal.
they're bipedal. They're walking on the ground. They're just a bunch of monkeys hanging and swinging in trees. Practically, they're moving on the surface. These starships, if you will, that these guys use. These things are around for hundreds, if not millions, of years. These ships that they use, because you look at an airplane. How much wear and tear is there on an airplane? You can have a plane in service for 30, 40 years because it's in the
Mm-hmm.
air. Air, it
Right.
doesn't wear on the skin of the plane. The only things that need to be replaced are those parts that hit the ground.
Tires and yeah.
Tires, the linkage and everything that holds the tires, all those joints and everything. And that's the only thing that
Mm-hmm.
wears on the plane is the stress of the plane hitting the ground. So right there, you look at, if you have this technology, and I know this is kind of going off on a side rail here, but the thing is with the technology of not having all of these things that touch the ground and where you just pop from one place to another, even if you didn't have jumping out of the physical universe and then jumping back into the physical universe, folding space type of a thing, and just pop, even if you had to move it at supersonic speeds, it would be a hell of a lot better for the environment. People could get around. You could go to Hong Kong for dinner, and then the next morning, you could be at your Waffle House in your local town, no problem. You get around from point A to point B, and it would be great. And you'd have this interchange of ideas and peoples and cultures and all of this stuff, and it wouldn't be a problem. It'd be a completely different planet, just with the social aspects alone. But
Mm-hmm.
instead, they choose to suppress it because they want us on fossil fuels. So this gets into, like LRH says, one of the key elements in this spiral, according to him, is the influence of suppressive persons on the technology. Now, this includes
Right.
electronic technology as well as Scientology,
Spiritual technology.
independent spiritual technology, because they
Right.
don't want you to know you're a spiritual being. If you're a spiritual being, you're much harder to control. If you knew who you were last lifetime and you had all these things handled, no, there's no holding you back.
Right.
This is
If
part of it.
if you understood your own divinity, if you understood your own essence of who you really are, who can control you? Who can control you because you know you're not just a meat body, right?
Right, right.
And so they drug you, they legalize all types of things going on, marijuana and stuff like that. They legalize these things in order to keep you partially sedated. That's
Mm,
really what it's about,
yep.
to keep you partially sedated so that as life is going on around you, you're less in present time, you're less aware, you're less focused on what they're really doing.
Hmm.
And it's all a part of the machinations of moral decline. It's all a part of the machinations of societal decay.
Hmm.
And we are, I believe, as independent Scientologists, we're definitely those who are making sure the technology is being utilized to help people. I mean,
Hmm.
even just with this podcast that you're listening to right now on YouTube or whatever, even with the way we do auditing as independent Scientologists in the ALGP, like we are able to bridge gaps and go across large swaths. There's my word again. You know, I love that word.
Swaths.
Large swaths of distance
Hmm.
in order to get somebody in session. When
Hmm.
before, I think I remember before when you had your RV and you would go from city to city, place to place,
Kansas City to
whatever, and you'd
Reno.
be right. You would do your thing, and which was wonderful that you were putting yourself in that space to do that. But and then we saw something better. And then we found a different way.
Mhm.
And so now we're able to get people in session day in, day out. We're
That's right.
able to get people in session no matter where they exist on this planet, as long as they have a Wi-Fi connection. And it's something that you can start to do something about it. And
Hmm.
as Scientologists, that's really what we want. We want to position ourselves in consciousness, spiritually speaking, with the necessary spiritual technology, and in this case, physical technology that allows us to do something about this backward decline, this dwindling spiral, as it's called,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm. Yeah,
It's interesting you mentioned. Okay, I'm sorry.
I was going to say, in other words, work smarter, not harder.
Yeah, yeah. And it's interesting you mentioned about how the overts and withholds, how these motivators, how these things continue to show up in people's experience, and they know it sucks.
Hmm.
They know this is not how I'm supposed to feel. They know that this is triggering. They know that this is toxic. We use all these words in past uh, podcasts. They know that these things that we're encountering with each other as human beings, they know that the way we're talking to each other and the way we're treating each other, it ain't right.
Hmm.
They know it. And yet there's few who are willing to do something about it. There's few who are willing to really go in and deal with our own stuff
Hmm.
so that we can come out on the other side clean, so
Hmm.
that we can come out on the other side whole, so that we can come out on the other side more self-aware and self-determined, so that we can help to better our world.
Right.
Let me ask you a question, because I know LRH um, talks about this or has talked about this, and he talks about how like we have to get our confront up, right?
Hmm.
We
Hmm.
really have to get our confront up to be able to deal with this decline, whether it is by getting in session and confronting our own reactive mind and our own stuff, or is becoming an auditor and becoming trained and getting ourselves prepared that way, or
Hmm.
both. um what do you think about that? How best can we kind of get our confront up in order to do something about this decline?
Hmm. Well, and it's interesting to look at it from the viewpoint of confront, and I want to do this on a gradient. When you don't want to do your laundry, that's confront, a lack thereof. When you don't want to
Right.
go out and mow the lawn, that's a lack of confront.
You
When
want to pay your bills.
you don't want to pay your bills, though you've got the money, that's a lack of confront. It's a little bit like that. You might be a redneck if.
We talked about
Yeah. you might be having a moment of low confront if you know the world is screwed up and you're not doing anything about it on the third dynamic.
Come on.
Okay, and this comes down to that reference from LRH from 1971 called "The World Begins with TR0."
Yeah.
And in it he states, look, people are getting reasonable, they're trying to water this stuff down and make it easier. It's a great word, but sometimes the best way to handle things, the easiest thing to do is just plain confront it. And that means get your TR0 in, and that means be there and be comfortable with it. If you have a hard time confronting something, chances are you've got some back off there, and that back off is caused by a lack of confront. Overts and withholds cause a lack of confront. Uncertainty, unknowingness, those cause lack of confront as well. And I mean, you might have to crack a book, you might have to pull up a web page, you might have to word clear, not wanting to word clear things that you should in order to do things properly. Lack of confront. Okay. That's what all of this is. That's how we got in this situation and in this mess in the first place, and we're on a place called Earth, is because it's a lack of confront, and you're going to have to confront in order for things to get better. That's all there is to it. It doesn't come down to anything else. Is you've got to learn how to be there and be comfortable. Name, want, get your product, per what LRH says, and look at it for what it is, and look at yourself and go, you know what, I've got some back off in this area. If you just made a list, you pause this podcast, you made a list of areas that you have a lack of confront in, 10 things. I'm sure everybody's got 20 or 30 or more. And you just looked at those and went, yeah, I getting on a course, getting in session, helping somebody out with something that you don't really want to do, talking to somebody that you don't really want to talk to. And that comes down to the complexity in confronting PL as well. You look at it and you go, and we've mentioned this in other podcasts, but it's good enough, great enough to mention again. You look at what's so complex about whatever it is there that you can't confront, and then you start confronting it. Why is it complex? Okay, it's because of this. Confront that area. That's it. It's that simple. And if you can't do it on your own, it's a two-terminal universe, folks. That's why auditing works. That's why your best friend works. Talk it out. Pull out the reference. Read it. Ask us for The World Begins with TR0. Ask us for complexity in confronting you. Get it on the website. If we can give you the actual, just that policy, just that LRH executive directive. Look at these things. And because you don't want to do something, that's a lack of confront. That's why this situation that we have here on Earth, this dwindling spiral, is occurring, is because people would much rather binge watch something on Netflix than go out and get a product on the weekend, because God forbid we do anything on the weekend. This is how you've been trained. God forbid you do anything after you get off of work. Well, I need some me time. That's true. That's true. Everybody needs their own personal time. But that doesn't mean that you can't take some of that personal time and do something for you personally to improve yourself, to then improve your
And your
third
condition.
dynamic and your condition and the conditions of others, because your first dynamic and your third dynamic are completely out of communication with each other. And for those people that do the opposite, and they do everything for their third dynamic like we do, we need to confront the fact that I need a Sunday off where I'm not taking 3 or 4 people in session. I just
Oh my
want to sit down
gosh.
and watch my Indiana Jones movie. That was wonderful.
I need to go to the gym.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, it's so
That's right.
go ahead.
That's right. Going to the gym. That's confronting something too. That's work, but it's good
Oh
work. You
my
got to get
gosh.
that body feeling good, get those endorphins going. And you'll notice that to the degree that you make the body happy is to the degree that you're happy, because it's a symbiotic relationship. It's a composite being. And if you take care of the body will definitely take care of you instead of drag you down. You'll always feel better if you go to the gym within reason. You don't have to spend 3 hours there, but spend an hour and a half, work that body, and you'll be able to confront a lot of other things in your life as well. I've found that to be true for myself.
Sure.
So, where does this bring us?
Well, I'll say, when LRH talked about in that policy letter, the world begins with TR0. Um, when LRH talks about it, he actually lists, as you read down, he actually lists some of the changes that take place in students' lives the more they have their TRs in, particularly TR0.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I'm totally, if I'm not mistaken, he talks about somebody losing a lot of weight, like dropping weight
Yeah.
as a function of confronting, right? And just being able to deal with it and confront it. How many people, I mean, how if we look around our society, particularly American society, and we see like we're not really confronting that anymore. There's
Mm-hmm.
such thing as fat shaming, and there's such a thing as, all these kinds of things. And it's like, I get that, and you don't want to ever shame anybody or invalidate someone. And at the same time, we have to also be able to confront what is, right? And
Mm-hmm.
talk about what's really going on in our society that is problematic for our health and for different things of that nature. So I think it's really important that we get our confront them. And so as independent Scientologists, as those of you listening to this, we're going to start confronting some things. We're going to start confronting our bills. We're going to start confronting our gym memberships. Jeez Louise. Oh, okay. We're gonna start confronting these things, and then just on our first dynamic and on our second dynamic, we're gonna start communicating more. We're gonna start getting our partners and ourselves in session so that we can make sure that we're not throwing in or pulling in stuff that shouldn't
Mm-hmm.
be there. You know what I mean? And then on our third dynamic, we're gonna start really helping other people out in our communities, in our spiritual circles, and our whatever. We're gonna continue to do this. One thing I love about the college with ALGP, you can literally log in to the college on ALGP, which is like the online course room kind of thing. And you can connect with other like-minded Scientologists that are also in there, that are also interested in communicating, that are also interested in talking about, what's going on in their courses, or what's going on in their lives in general. There's plenty of people in our Facebook groups that are there as well, and being active in that could really, really
Mm-hmm.
increase our two-way comm just with other like-minded independent Scientologists. All of these things, I believe, is something really, really important for us to address just in our own sphere of influence,
Mm-hmm.
how we can improve our decline in our society. I want to ask you a question, because you talked about technical degradation, and you talked about like whether it be misusing and suppressives misusing our actual like literal technology, physical technology, electronic technology, as well as spiritual technology.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to spiritual technology, when it comes to Scientology as a study particularly, why is it such a big deal to Scientologists, to independent Scientologists, that we have the original tech? Why is that such a big deal? Why can't we just say, oh, if it works, it works, right?
Mm-hmm.
Why is it the original tech such a big deal?
Well, a good analog to that, a good analogy is, what do you like better? Watching a YouTube video where you get a proper mass and significance on something, and it's done, and it's a superbly done video, and it takes 3 minutes, and they step by step by step, and they don't talk all the time, and it's just boom, 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 gradient approach, bam, and you're like,
Yes.
shh. Or you have somebody that explains it, says, well, you kind of got to do this, and but sometimes, and then, well, and you just sitting there just face palming yourself, because you're like, I just like,
I just fast forward through it. That shit. I be hitting.
yeah, somebody tries to give you directions, and they give you directions, and they're just the worst directions ever, and you get out in the country and you're lost, and your
Oh yeah.
GPS doesn't have a signal, and okay, well, same thing here. LRH says it is a tech. It isn't perfect, but it is as close to perfect as he could get it. And I have seen this myself. And you
Mm-hmm.
do what he says, you get the results that he says. When you get things
Mm-hmm.
that are watered down, all right, I feel a little bit better. Okay. And maybe you would never ever know, like in the church, that they've altered these things, and they've altered them for a lot of reasons that
Mm-hmm.
we've covered in several other podcasts. So I'm not going to get into that here. But the thing
Mm-hmm.
is if you've ever had really, really good something, Okay, as a comparable magnitude, you've had steak at Ruth Chris Steakhouse in the United States, or any number of
Crap,
really
it's so
top
good.
tier, 4-star restaurants. Then
Mhm.
you really know what steak is. That's like having LRH Tech. And then you go to Golden Corral and they have all you can eat steak. And they're just not the same.
It's just not the
This is
same, right?
this is what we're dealing with. Is it's just it's meh. That's the difference.
Right.
Now, do you want meh, or do you
Meh.
want that was the best thing I could have ever done was eat at that
Yeah.
steakhouse? My life has forever been changed. I will never ever. I always wondered what the thing was. What people like steak? I don't like. It's because you never had good steak. You never had great steak.
Right.
There's 3 tiers of beef in the United States. If you're not a vegetarian, you generally 99.9% of the time never get past USDA choice. Okay, there's 2 other tiers
Ah!
above that. Okay, so that's why it's
Wow.
so important in the tech that LRH's stuff is so good that you can screw it up so badly that you'll still get some gains from it. But if you're with
Mhm.
somebody or somebodies that can tell you, here's the good stuff, let's clear your words, let's get you on a meter, let's get those cleared up so that you can take this and you can go out and apply it in your life, and you went from $30,000 a year to $200,000 a year. How would you feel about that tech? Okay. Or you went
Right.
from looking at planet Earth from a meat body to, I am a spiritual being and I have been around a mighty long time and I am free and emancipated from this thing once and for all. And I can see how this whole thing is rigged and I can do something about it for other people. And I feel really, really good about myself and I love my job. Hmm.
Mhm.
Would you? Could you? Sure, you could. All you
Well,
have to
yeah,
do is
because
decide.
decide, yeah. Because a trap is only a trap until you recognize it's a trap.
That's
You
right.
know,
You don't know what you don't
once you
know.
realize it's a trap,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, once you realize it's a trap, it's just a problem.
That's
It's
right.
just it's a puzzle. It's a riddle, whatever case it be. And so now you're able to see, especially as we continue like learning more and more and more, we're able to see the nature of the trap.
Mm-hmm.
We're able to see the nature of it, and now it now becomes something that we apply our data solver to, and we become the solution
Mm-hmm.
to the nature of the trap, the nature of the
That's right.
problem.
Data
And
the
so
solution.
exactly, the solver. And so it's cool because and the only reason why I asked about the technical, the way we the technology has been altered is because I wanted to kind of bring up that point that when you're dealing with corporate Scientology and you're dealing with this whole idea of let's give it to them. I think LRH calls them permissive, what does it call it? Permissive PCTRs or
Yeah.
permissive public.
Yeah.
Permissive
Permissive pub.
public
Mm-hmm.
TRs.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh. And you get to this place where it's like permissive public TRs, and it's like I'm gonna confront, but I'm gonna confront it in a permissive public way.
Mm-hmm.
We call it PC, being
Mm-hmm.
politically correct.
Mm-hmm.
This politically correct way as not to offend or as not to cause any problems or as not to da da da. And I totally get it. You don't want to create ARC breaks in your environment. And at the same time, there's things that we do have to deal with
Mm-hmm.
as they are in
Mm-hmm.
order to as is them.
That's
Get
right.
this. Get your axioms in.
Mm-hmm.
You have to see it for exactly what it is in order to as is it and have it disappear, have it vanish,
That's right.
right? And it's no longer a problem. If it's a weight thing, and I'm just using that because I gotta go to the gym. If it's if it's a if it's a weight thing, you gotta see it for what it really is and
Mm-hmm.
stop being permissive with yourself,
Mm-hmm.
with myself. Stop being permissive and say, oh, I'll just have, I've been drinking a little Starbucks, the big,
Mm-hmm.
grande, such and such, venti or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. And uh, And I give myself permission. I give
Right.
myself permission to have one. But
Right.
I'm being permissive with myself when I'm also saying, I got to hit the gym. I need to hit the gym. I need to drop, a few kilos. Like these are things that are real. And if we keep being permissive with ourselves, we're going to be permissive with others. And you're going to see some stuff happening and you're not going to be able to do something about it because
Mhm.
you're not prepared for it.
That's right. You can't be the
That's how
adverse
that's our
adverse
society.
is something that you understand. As long as you apply it, you cannot be the adverse effect of it. You can get out in
Yeah.
front of it. And that's the whole thing, is that you either give yourself permission to do the right thing or you give yourself permission to do the wrong thing. That's
Mhm.
ethics. Ethics is
Right.
reason for LRH. So, and that's where reasonable comes from, folks. Reasonable. Are you being reasonable with yourself
Right.
and not going to the gym, not working out, not eating right, not buying yourself some nice clothes to feel good in, wearing those nice clothes and being professional? Because it does affect the way you feel about yourself, and other people see that, they perceive that, they know that if you've got swagger and confidence and you're, boom, 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 and your ARC's in and your comm cycle's in, you got it made. It's that simple.
Yeah.
Now, this is part of the thing that you see in the decline of society is you got people walking around in their PJs going to Walmart. It's there's no self pride in a lot of things. They don't clean their cars. They don't take care of their kids. Their kids raise themselves. They have no personal goals because they've just given up and they
Mhm.
don't want to confront. And part of the reason of this, and we're gonna back up on our outline here real quick. A big part of this is because of the what's in the food, the drugs that people are being pushed on. The
Yep.
epidemic isn't COVID. The epidemic is painkillers, folks. Painkillers. There are more people addicted to pharmaceutical drugs in the United States than anything else. We're talking 2/3 of the public are addicted to these painkillers for good
Mhm.
reason, because they're being used as sheep to capitalize off of. See, these pharmaceutical companies are feeding you the worst possible things, and this
Right.
really affects the way you live your life. And you need to get help somewhere. If you don't get it from us, get it from somebody. We can get you off of these drugs. We can do an ethics repair list. We can do a purif. We can do a drug rundown. We can do objectives. Your life will turn around and you will feel like yourself again and be somebody you can be proud of, yourself. This is part of the problem, not just in the US, but all over the world. Take a pill instead of confront. Don't do that.
Yeah.
Don't do
Jeez.
that. Now,
And it affects us.
go
Oh,
ahead.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
That's right.
No, and I was going to say, and it affects us spiritually, obviously
Tremendously.
psychologically or whatever, but it affects us spiritually as well because it keeps us trapped. There's that word again. It keeps us trapped in that state, that spiritual condition, that spiritual state. Because when you're not confronting, you're not doing your conditions.
That's right.
You're not going up the conditions, and you're not constantly trying to move towards something better.
Mm-hmm.
You're just existing in what is. And excuse me. And anytime there's what's the statement? In order to in order for something to persist, it must contain a lie. The
Mm-hmm.
axiom. In
Mm-hmm.
order for something to persist, it must contain a lie. So if we have a condition and the doctor gives you a pill or whatever, and it still persists, somewhere there's a lie in there.
Well, right.
You
Like, I mean,
understand what
your
I'm saying?
PTS for starters, if you're sick in the first place, I
Yeah,
get pain management and all that stuff, but that's
yeah.
that's that's late in the fourth quarter that you're having to deal with the pain management thing, because the only reason you're sick is because you've committed
Mhm.
overts against somebody that's suppressing you, or somebody that reminds you of somebody that suppressed you in the past where you committed overts against them, because it puts you at effect. And you can't tell me as an auditor that you're not at effect if you're feeling pain and you need pain management. And that's why you take
Well,
these things. Sorry,
yeah,
but
because
not sorry.
sorry, but not sorry, because you're dealing with something that is attacking you, and I'm not necessarily saying an individual, unless an individual actually attacks you, but something is attacking you. Something is gotten you in this spiritual condition, this spiritual place. There's a saying that says, pain is inevitable because obviously you got a physical body and one day you might
Hmm.
stub your toe or whatever.
Hmm.
Pain is inevitable, but suffering is a choice.
That's right.
And it's this idea that, yeah, you might have a something come up, something might show up, something might hurt, something might be a problem, but to suffer in it, to bear it, and the gritting of the teeth, and there's so many people just
Hmm.
sit around in pain and they pop pain pills like they're Tic Tacs, and they're saying that I just don't want to confront the pain anymore. I don't want to feel the pain anymore. And I get that one thinks that that is a
That's the
better
why,
state
but
to
it's
be
not.
in.
Right. That's the
It is
wrong
not.
why. That is
Yeah.
that is a symptom, or the symptomatic side of being a potential trouble source. These bodies are miraculous at taking care of themselves. The only reason they get sick is because the thetan that is attached to them, unless of course they have some sort of genetic defect, or they've been put in the presence of radiation near them or something like that. There are very, very few reasons that they have problems themselves. It's the thetan that causes the problem, the composite
Hmm.
case. Once you take
They
responsibility
the
for that,
solver. I mean, the problem. Yeah.
that's right. You can be theta the solver instead of theta the problem. And it's a game to have body problems. I mean, I've seen it in my own family. That's the game. Have body problems gives you something to talk about. It gives you something to have sympathy. It gives you something to do, especially when you get older.
Yes.
So,
Right.
don't buy into the lie on that, because that's earth. That's not you. And you can get around this by being theta the solver and looking at this and going, I'm sick for a reason. I need to figure out what that reason is talk to one of us here at AOGP. We'll help you out with it. We'll get you on the right path. We've got all kinds of free courses from LRH to give you this data so that you can understand what's going on in your universe. Get a little life repair, get some neurodynetics, do some book one and a co-audit like Quentin did for a year and a half.
Hmm.
Life changing this stuff
My
is.
gosh.
He can tell you.
Many psychosomatic illnesses, things that I was literally suffering in, could not bear it, could not confront it, could not eat certain foods because of severe allergies that would almost take me out, couldn't do certain things, like go to the park and play in baseball or play football with my friends, couldn't do certain things because of the way my body was commanding me to feel
Mm-hmm.
and to
Mm-hmm.
go through.
Right.
And just using the spiritual technology that we offer as independent Scientologists, like just using that, the LRH tech, like was able to literally change my entire experience of life.
Mm-hmm.
Experience of life. I was in a car accident. My grandmother was driving. I was on the back seat, and we were hit by a drunk driver, um, in the back. So the entire back of the car was crushed, and of course, me being on the back seat, the the
The front seat was
force
what you ran
went.
into,
Well, actually, it was the back of the back seat
hitting you.
pushed my back up,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it pushed my back up, it messed my back up or whatever. And for years, I used to have to go to the chiropractor, have to get the electrode thing
Yeah, the
up to my
stem.
back.
Mm-hmm.
I used to have, yeah, I have to get all that stuff. And just sitting in a little house in Atlanta, Georgia, using Dianetics book one, that's all we had,
Mm-hmm.
um, was able to deal with this. And this was years ago, before the golden age of tech. This was before, so it did nothing, and magically more better now. It's like, no, this was years ago when I was able to use what we had to get massive, massive gains, and was able to go out and play football, was able to do all these other things I wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, it is what it is. Like, it's like this stuff is attacking you.
Yeah. And it took confront to do that for a year and a half. That's what we're
That's
talking
right.
about, is you've got to confront the fact that in order to make change, you have to be the change. Things don't change unless
You do.
you do. You change them.
Mhm.
Now that
Mhm.
brings us to the state of clear.
Yeah.
Clear is a great start, and it's far, 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 far better thing you do than you have ever done before. You might have heard that somewhere else. I'm stealing it. But the thing is it is really true that you get to clear. You can do it with book one. You can do it with Scientology auditing, get there quicker and more thoroughly using a meter. You can take responsibility for your own case. That's what happens when you go clear. You basically get a certificate that says a being who no longer has their own reactive mind. And you're turning around the dwindling spiral in a much larger sphere of influence than you could ever possibly imagine by going clear. And this is something that is very, very, very important. It's not real to these individuals on Reddit that don't know anything about Scientology and they make fun of the state.
Right.
They have no clue. They aren't even up to realizing there is a need for change. This is on the chart of awareness on the Scientology grade chart. You got to know you need something fixed instead of pointing it at other people going, look at these guys. They're way
Look what he's
down.
trying to do.
Yeah. That's what clear is all about, is you're taking responsibility for your own case. When you take responsibility for your own case, you're taking responsibility for a lot of other cases as well. And you can do something about it very, very soon through the solo course and getting on the OT levels. Doesn't take a long time. It's not hard.
Mm-mm.
It's very, very simplistic on a gradient. You're going to know how to do this. And one of the most unique things to me about changing the dwindling spiral is very, very, very few people do this. Okay. We are the minority of the minority of the minority of the minority. It doesn't matter. We take more responsibility for the dwindling spiral doing what we do than billions of other people do who are just living their lives in complete obscurity and unawareness. And it doesn't take many to change it. You're looking at maybe 10,000 people can turn around this dwindling spiral because you're affecting so many other beings by going in session on the OT levels. You are literally turning things around from the inside out after clear, but you got to get there first.
And isn't it true that LRH wanted us to have a clear planet and have a goal to clear the planet?
Yeah, it is. I said I was on a drive once, a long distance drive in Florida one night, and I had my calculator sitting in my Suburban, and I pulled it out of the middle there, and I figured out how many hours, how one auditor, what possibly from about the age of 20, which is about when I started, to, well, let's say 70, 75. How many clears could one person make? I was
Wow.
shocked at how few it is because it takes about 250 to 300 hours to make it clear. Okay.
Oh.
Yeah. Bet you didn't know that.
I did not know that.
Right.
That's something to know.
Okay. Now you figure that out. Let's say 400. Let's say 400 and just add in a margin of fudge factor there. Okay. So you got 400 hours. And then you look at, okay, how many hours a week? Let's say this auditor is a real go-getter and he audits. Yeah, I know. I saw his chat message. 400 hours. Okay. And this auditor, let's say he's a real go-getter and he audits 60 hours a week. You can't audit one person 60 hours a week. It's not,
Right.
not that you can't, but that's auditing several people because the person's going to be so blown out. There's not going to be anything to audit there. But let's just say it's 60 hours. Okay. 60 times what makes 40? 400. 6 times
400
10 is
divided by
600.
60.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's about 6 people. Yeah,
Six
6.7.
times 8 is 480. 60 times 8 is 480. So 6 times 7 is 420. Okay.
Yeah, something like that.
Okay. So you got 60 hours a week. That's 42 in 42 weeks. Well, you can do the math from there. You're not going to make very many clears. So what's the solution? Well, the solution is everybody takes responsibility for another person, like you and your co-audit partner did in doing book one. You can make it clear one person with one person far, far faster, and more of them if everybody does a co-audit. And this is one of the things that was super popular in the late 70s,
Yes.
early
I
to
love
middle to
co-audit.
late 70s with standard Dianetics. And all you
Mhm.
had to do is just buy a $500 meter, sit down, read the book because it was a check sheet in book form, do what he says to do, and they made clears wholesale. And this caused the
Mm.
biggest boom in Scientology's history by each person taking responsibility for the other, sort of a pay it forward kind of system. Okay, but now
Right.
that takes time, and you're looking about a year. Now, if you had
Mhm.
every single person on the planet doing this all at once, we'd have a clear in about a year, year and a half.
Yeah.
Okay,
Hello?
all right, that's what, 8 billion people. Okay, so let's be realistic here and say, okay, that's fantasy, Jonathan. You're full of it. Okay, what if we just did 100,000 people? That's 50,000 people auditing 50,000 people to clear. Do you know what kind of a
Mhm.
dent that would make in the society? A
Right.
huge dent in the pool of theta, the available theta that's there. And if these people were trained further on policy technology, on the data series, and you sent these people out into the world without being fettered by, buy an IAS membership, buy 2 meters, pay for books for people that get thrown in a dumpster when they're given to the library
Donate
for
to the
free.
ideal org.
Yeah, donate to the ideal org. Get rid of all this bullshit that doesn't have anything to do about lining the pockets of some some attorneys that don't have anything to do with Scientology or Miscavige himself and buying him another $5,000 suit. It has to do with, it's just your time. If I had
Yeah.
5,000 people contact me and wanted to do a co-audit, I'd do it for free. I'd do it
Mhm.
for free. Okay. That's all it takes. That's
Oh
half of
my
what we're
gosh.
looking at. All right. I would donate my time and say, okay, here's the courses. This is what you've got to do. Okay. You're going to have to buy a theta meter. We'll get this done. And systematically, you could do it. Easy.
Mhm.
Okay. This would turn the dwindling spiral around. And I know it sounds like, wow, that's fantasy and everything. No, it's not. I mean,
No,
you
it's not.
look at how many people follow things online and I mean, it's such a drop in the bucket. It's not even funny. That's not that
Well,
many people.
and if you think about it, let me tell you, and I know because I know, okay, because I've done it.
Mhm.
I know that when we moved into that house in Atlanta and we decided to start doing book one, we did not own a television. There was no televisions in the house. We had cell phones, of course, but
Yep.
no televisions in that house.
Mhm.
And that alone freed our attention up so that we can really focus on what we were there to accomplish, right?
Mhm.
Just that
Mhm.
alone.
Mhm.
And I'm not telling every independent Scientologist to get rid of your televisions and just audit. What I'm saying is that if this is something you really want to shift in your experience, if this is something that you wish to have as being one who is reaching toward the state of clear, if this is something that you know can really change your life and the life of your children, the life of your partner, your husband, your wife, if this is something that can really change your life, why not take some of that Netflix
Yeah.
time
Why wouldn't you?
and and let's get the family in auditing. Let's get the family doing some running some stuff. Let's let's
Mhm.
let's let's tag team with one of our neighbors. Let's tag with him with a friend, and let's say, listen, you run my wife, I'm gonna run your wife.
Right.
We-
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
we-
That would be the best. That would be the best way to do it. Is do it
yeah,
that way.
you
Just
gotta run
round
your
robin it, because it'd be a lot more sane and a lot easier than auditing your own TV.
yes.
But
No, yeah,
yeah,
don't do that.
and it's not hard. It's
And
that
and even
simple.
if you and even if you don't hit 400 hours or whatever the deal is, I'm clear, whatever it is. Listen, the amount of case gain that you would get by simply doing some stuff and getting some of those things off of you. I can tell you when I can breathe, because I could not breathe before because of my nasal passages and my allergies. When I went to my optometrist and I used to have to wear toric lenses, contact lenses, because of my eyesight. I had really bad astigmatism at the time. And just doing book one, right hand to God, I was able to change the shape of my cornea. This is
Mhm.
just my experience. None of these results are typical, okay?
Right.
But and I'm
I'm
not
no
saying that
medical
Dianetics is
doctor.
there to I'm no medical doctor, but I'm not saying that Dianetics is here to cure any kind of physical ailments or issues. However, in my experience, when my optometrist said, "Your cornea has changed," and I said, "Huh?" And he said, "It used to be like this," and he held his hands and he showed this like little jagged fingers, and now it's this. And he did a whole smooth little hand, like
Mhm,
smooth curvature of the hand. I
mhm.
was like, "Oh, okay." That's all I had to say, you know. Um, and he was like, "Wow, this is so weird." My point in saying all this is to say is that just the level of case gain that you would have, the level of experience of change that you could get, the level of communication and confront that you would have about whatever goes on in your family, whatever goes on in your life. This is the kind of stuff that we're talking about, and this is the kind of stuff that does reverse the decline of our society. Because think about this: those 100,000 um 50,000, those 100,000 people that you're talking about getting in session doing this massive co-audit thing, right, across the globe. It's as independent Scientologists.
Mhm.
If that were to happen, I can guarantee you that there will be a change in policies. There will be change in personalities.
Yep.
There will be a change in businesses. There will be a
Mhm,
change in nonprofits and services that's rendered. There will be a change that takes place, a wonderful change. It'll be a wonderful change
mhm.
that happens. And this is what we're talking about here. So I'm excited. You can hear
Yeah.
it in my voice. My
Yeah.
God.
Yeah. This is all it takes is, getting in session, whether it's a co-audit or on your own. Either way is fine, and it's quick. It's quicker. A co-audit takes a while to learn, but 50% of the gains is based off of training. 50% is based off of auditing or processing. If we don't do something about this beyond, I Quentin and I work 12, 14 hours a day. Jamie works 12, 14 hours a day a lot of the time. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
We need some more team members here, folks. And we need to turn this thing around, not just for AOGP, but for the planet. Because
Yeah.
this is the same thing that's happened over and over and over again. It is a story so repeated throughout history, not just here, but throughout this universe. We need to turn this thing around, and we need to take responsibility and be proud of the fact that we are doing something for our third and fourth dynamics before it's too late. I mean, way he was talking, way Quentin was talking about his cornea and how it changed shape. What if you could do that for illiteracy? What if you could do that for the poverty? I would know, he would know, where we both live, how off the hook poverty is in South Africa and the Philippines. Seriously, we can do something about this. And it doesn't take much. It's just taking an interest and being theta the solver for yourself, first dynamically, second dynamically, third dynamically. The role of a Scientologist is vital. An independent Scientologist, I don't care whether you're in the church or not and you're listening to this, you're still a good person if you're listening to this. Either way, you want to help people get the word out, apply this tech while we can and while we still have a chance before comm lines are cut, drugs are put into people's systems, all of this crazy stuff that's going on, drugs are being put into the food. We need to fix this. Auditing is the solution. Training is the solution. I would love to invite you to like us on YouTube, like us on Facebook, share the posts, share the wins, watch the videos, listen to these podcasts, share these podcasts, decide to do something about it for other people and for yourself. If you have a strong third dynamic like Quentin and I do, sometimes that's what it takes, is you can do more for the third dynamic than you can the first, but we can fix that too.
Yeah.
So we're coming to the close on this podcast. I got to get in session with
I will
the
also say,
Go ahead.
I know you gotta go. I will also say this. I want to invite any of you who are listening to this and was able to make it to the end. If you want to get in good two-way comm, if you want to open up a conversation, if there's any questions you have about independent Scientology, if there's anything you want to know, like what is this really? Why is this really happening? Like what's going on? I invite you to reach out to us privately. Like you can always find me on Facebook. I know you can find Jonathan as well. Please, please, please reach out to us and let's open up that conversation conversation, and just you and I talking, nothing, super fancy or whatever. But I would love to have a dialogue with you about what's happening right now in our world, in our community, and take it from there.
Yep. For myself, Jonathan Burke, Quentin Stroud. We'll see you the next podcast on Wednesday. We love you. Namaste. And what do you always say,
Peace.
Quentin? Peace.
Peace.
Bye for now.